One eternity later.
Because like I said, those same players that are using a crutch now may be better than you after a while.
Yeah.
Because they didn't struggle the first time. They didn't get burnt out.
If they play through with a crutch and they're like, hey, I really enjoyed this game. Now I am open to committing the hours to get the skills that other players had when I was playing through it. That's even better.
Yeah.
But I don't need people getting burnt out on their first playthrough.
This is too stressful. This is too stressful. I don't like this game. It's too stressful. Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened to me with Path of Exile. There's like a mechanic that gives me anxiety in the game. And I cannot play through the game because of that. It's like I just don't like those moments where that's a necessary part of the game. And it interferes with my loot goblin mode, where it's like, oh, I have to explore everything. I want to see everything this map has to offer. There's this now like timer that tells me, oh, you can't linger here. You just get burned out on it. Like, I don't this is not the game for me now.
Part of me wants to do fishing in games.
Honestly, it's not a bad idea.
Kid, you couldn't stay away. You didn't even sing the sea spray once it's missed in your gums.
Before we begin, the Gamers Advocate would like to remind you that any episode could contain game spoilers, so watch or listen with discretion. And now your hosts, AM Comnenos, Banana and Legion. Enjoy the show.
Yeah. So the mechanics were phenomenal. Just, it's hard to win.
The Dark Souls of fishing games.
The first time playing that, you cannot use more than the rowboat.
Exactly. No upgrade run. That's the only acceptable way to say you've beaten it.
If you use anything more than a worm, you're cheating.
Yeah.
Min-maxing on the SNES.
You're not using a spear with some string tied to it, you're cheating.
Well, welcome on in to yet another episode of the Gamers Advocate podcast. I'm joined with Banana Hammock Republic, the elite fisherman.
I don't know about that.
We were talking about fishing and we thought about it more and more and more. And we thought that's a pretty good topic to actually cover. There's so many fishing mini games inside games you wouldn't expect them to be. When you encounter them, they actually make sense a lot of times. But it's odd that coming from my NES, SNES days, there really wasn't a fishing mechanic within a game. It was either you were doing a fishing game or something related.
A fishing game or something else. Yeah. There was no overlap.
But now it seems like you can't even make an RPG without some fishing mechanic.
Yeah.
Kind of wild.
Yeah, and that's where this topic really comes from. There was a stretch not too long ago where I was playing through some RPGs, maybe not like around the time they first released, but like finally getting my first chance to dig into them. And I think I just played like 4 or 5, 6 in a row where I'd play through the game and I was like, oh, this is a really fun game. It has a fishing minigame. Why does it have a fishing minigame? And then some of those, like the fishing minigame was super fun. It was really enjoyable. Some of them, it was like a huge detour from what was going on in the game. But like, I can't remember anywhere it felt like tremendously out of place.
One of the earliest ones that I recognized was World of Warcraft. Because you had to make it for your food mechanic. If you weren't a mage, you couldn't summon your own food or mana or whatever. I think they did food as well. It's been so long. But you had to like either make steaks or this or that. And one of the easiest things to do was just to fish. And so you would get your fish, when you're in between battles and stuff, you would heal up and that's what you used. You could eat. And some of them had passive bonuses on them if you like stamina, increase stamina for 20 minutes or something like that. But yeah, I was always fishing in World of Warcraft. Everywhere I went, I was like, I wonder what new fish I'm going to find. And sometimes they would add a fish here or there that was unique. My wife really got into that. She would do the fishing tournaments at Booty Bay. I think that's what the name of it was. Every Sunday they would have around, I don't know, 8 o'clock server time in the morning. And then you went out and wherever you saw a swirling pool, you try to put in there and catch a special fish. And whoever brought it back to them, I think that's what it was. Whoever brought back the fish won the tournament for that week or something. And she won it like a few times. She was like, that's what she liked. You know, that was the first one I remember encountering a fishing mechanic that was notable to me.
I don't know World of Warcraft particularly well. I never really got into that. I think it was one of those games that I knew I would have liked, but the subscription model just didn't do it for me. Like I couldn't commit to something like that. And I think once I had income and I actually could do that, I felt like I had missed the boat and everybody was already kind of established in their guilds and none of my friends wanted a brand new player to join them. So yeah, I feel like I kind of missed out on that one.
Yeah, that was the first one for me. I was already, married with kids. I was working, but that was, like I said, the first one I could remember. But I think for me, when I was thinking of like fishing games, one thing that's always like been consistent, and everybody, and somebody may have some opposite opinion, of course, but the Stardew Valley does a lot of things really well, amazingly well. So much so, obviously, that it blew up to no one's surprise. But oftentimes I get told that the fish mechanic is the worst of all those types of games. And I would have thought they would have fixed it by now, but everybody complains about the fishing mechanic in that game.
Yep. That was definitely one that I knew was going to come up. I still have never played Stardew Valley, so I don't know much about that game. I know the others in like the style of Stardew Valley a little better, but I don't know Stardew Valley itself. I think that was kind of the only thing I had heard about the fishing mechanic, is just like in a game where there's so many different things you could do, the fishing is like kind of universally regarded as the one that nobody wants to do.
Yeah. Because, you can get a personal
rough
record of a certain type of fish, this and that, and you can keep track of all that. The one I play a lot of that I advocate a ton of is Traveler's Rest. It has a fishing game. It's not hard at all. It's pretty easy. And the skill with that one is to find as many different types of varieties of fish. So that way, when you cook them, they're seasonal and you get more money back from them. And there's all these different recipes you have to grind for and things. So there's a whole mechanic behind the fishing itself. And it makes sense to me. Stardew, I can't really say that. It's more of like just to say you did it. No.
Mm-hmm. I guess I hadn't really looked at this idea from the perspective of like the rewards for fishing in a game, because I know one of the first games that came to mind when we brought this topic up for me was Final Fantasy 15, and I just remember that being a big part of the grind for me, was like trying to catch all of the fish. And I think there's even like a quest line of like progressing as a fisherman, and it was one of those things that like I enjoyed the mini game, I enjoyed the progression, I enjoyed that completionism part of things, but the reward for it for me was pretty focused on just the recipes you unlocked by having those fish in your inventory. And I rarely ever paid much attention to those, because the recipes in Final Fantasy 15, they're things you can select when you rest overnight in camp, and they give you kind of like passive buffs. And I think if I remember right, those passive buffs don't last forever. They're just kind of like for the first, however many hours after you rest, you have this buff. It might have lasted until the next time you rested for some of them, but it was something that I never paid super close attention to, because I think the combat in that game was pretty straightforward, and it was one of those things where like I don't need those buffs. I could just strategize or play better and get around them. So it was very much something I just did to complete the game because I wanted to, because I enjoyed the little fishing mini game. It wasn't super focused on the rewards I got from that.
One thing I'll notice here that sometimes a lot of games are putting it in scenes to kind of give a setting of, I don't know, like low key rule type thing, you know? So for instance, I was playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and there's there's this guy who his ship crashed, and there's like a middle of tar and stuff everywhere. And this may have been the second one. Either way, he was fishing in this little area. He had nothing else to do but to fish, and my mind thought, oh, we're gonna fish. You know, what's his name? What's his nut? The Jedi guy. That'd be kind of neat. You know, just something that's totally outside of his element. But I could kind of see this happening. And it was just somebody we talked to, and because he had nothing else to do, he was fishing. I was like, that's so neat. But I really thought we were going to be fishing. I thought he was going to train us how to fish. And I thought, I wasn't expecting this concept, but I'm not against it either.
Yeah,
so.
Honestly, I can see that working as like a little kind of meditational training exercise. So yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised at all if you were like, yeah, we went through like a little quest line with him as our mentor and we learned how to fish. It's almost a little disappointing it didn't work out that way.
What actually happens later on, there's an NPC who is a professional fisherman, and he advances his story and tells you his whole story. He's like a little walrus guy. His home planet is kind of like a polar type planet biome, and these pirates came by, and he was really good at fishing, so he supported his village after all the decimation by the pirates and stuff. Well, they took him captive because he was such a good fisherman. I mean, it's this long story, and you did it over several planets every time you would meet him and stuff, and it was just so good. Gives us a fisherman tale, you know? Yeah,
that I think that's one of those things where like it seems out of place in a Star Wars world. But it's such a fun little like Easter egg to constantly bump into that guy and have him tell you like, yeah, I had to move over from the last planet. It just wasn't working out there. Just trying to do my own fisherman thing and stuff keeps getting in the way. Like I think that's a very fun way to bring an NPC in that like doesn't really need to be there, but it provides some entertainment for the player, and you're kind of excited every time you see him. You're like, oh, what happened this time?
Yeah. Yeah, because he's in this, like, a place that you wouldn't think are fish. He's like, yeah, not too many people think that there would be any fish in here, but they are, and they're deadly.
and I also think the way that we've seen, like, the Force manifest with some Force sensitives almost suggests that, like, there's probably somebody who's, you know, a Force user fisherman who doesn't realize that they're Force sensitive. So it fits perfectly with Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Coward.
Hey, Scuba. How's the water?
Fine. I just wanted to thank you for lending me your tank. Plenty more space for plenty more fishes, though. Let's keep them all spinning, eh?
And then there's, of course, I think Com would have preferred us wait for him for this one, but Red Dead has an excellent fishing game.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I still have not gotten around to playing Red Dead.
Yeah, it's one of those that you have to really commit to it. But once you've done it,
yeah,
you'd be like, everybody should play Red Dead 2 at least once. It's really good. The thing about Red Dead 2 for me, it always seems like kind kind of one of those slow burns where you kind of like understand him and you think this is good. And, you know, there's a lot to do, but then the open world opens up and it's like any other open world game where it's like, man, this is a lot to do. I don't know if I want to go this way or that way. And then you kind of just end up stepping back. But if you just kind of get into your character a bit and just put one foot in front of the other, you're not going to miss anything.
Yeah, I think that that is a big obstacle for me in open world games, is that initial introduction to the world, and you're just like, oh, where what do I even do? There's so much. There's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to break this up into sections where I feel like I'm done with this area, I can move on, or maybe I can't even finish any area until I start the next one. So it gets a little too overwhelming, and I've avoided a lot of what I've heard are wonderful games as a result of just knowing that they're very open very early.
Yeah, Rockstar is really good at that open world mechanic, but you know, for me, it's always been a really good open world is something like The Witcher 3, where you're locked behind a level. So you could go that way. You're not going to have fun. You're going to die 5 feet from stepping inside the area.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that because you kind of are, you know, training towards a path. And so if you choose to stay in your area, you definitely can, but you kind of feel like you've finished it once you've out leveled it, you know?
Yeah.
But I think also for other fishing, you mentioned one earlier. I forget whether or not it was SNES or what, but it was like bass fishing.
Yeah. That was back in the era before everything was sponsored by somebody. It was just tennis or soccer.
Banana Hammock Republic's bass fishing.
Yeah. There was no like spokesperson. It was just fishing.
And Bass Pro Shops presents Batson. Yeah, it was really neat because I think you mentioned that like when you played you could never win. I remember that game and it wasn't easy. And what was hard for me was initially the moving the boat around, but I found out you could upgrade your boat. And it had like these really weird I almost feel like it was in Louisiana based on some of the signs I would read. And but it's like gator
signs in Creole.
Yeah, it was just really kind of goofy. And so you'd have like a car half in the water. Like it was left there or something. And but the mechanics of the game were
boat you start with.
Yeah. But the mechanics of the game seemed really interesting because if I remember right, you would upgrade your boat as you got your winnings. So then you were able to kind of go into more shallow areas or get around faster, because that's part of the trick of the tournament is that you had to get your fish turned in. So however much you were able to kind of turn in dictated your overall weight, which would, you know, let you win. But it wasn't just like one grand prize fish or something like that. You had to also, so if you had a slow boat, you know, faster boat could catch, you know, more fish, even if they weighed less, you know. But yeah, that was part of the mechanic. It was just hard to kind of navigate that boat around because it was back in those, I think it was SNES,
I think so. And I also think like this was a console I shared with older brothers. I think that was one of the games we owned, not like a rental. I have no idea why any of the three of us would have gotten a fishing game as like one of the few games we owned at that point.
Maybe it was one of those bargain bins.
Yeah, that might have been it. Because like the other games we have are like Mario, and Metroid, and Mega Man fishing.
Yeah. Like I said, it was so, I remember it so clearly in my head, but I couldn't tell you the name. I couldn't tell you how much I played it. Probably not even that much. But yeah, I remember definitely that game. There was another game, I think SNES. It's not fishing per se, but there were fish in it. It was called Toobin. Toobin. And you're just like grabbing, you're in a tube. You know, kind of like going down the river, and you were just, I think, picking up beer. And stuff.
That sounds right.
But it was kind of fun. It was like, this is supposed to be a kid's game. It was a very adult information, but I think there was some fish here and there that I don't remember if you were supposed to catch them or if they were just decoration, but I remember them being there. Some wild games back then. But you had also mentioned Nier Automata, which that's very different.
That's the opposite end of the spectrum. There's a game where like fishing doesn't seem like it fits, and I can't even remember how or why you were encouraged to fish in that game. But it was one of those things that like, oh, I gotta fish. There's 26 endings or something. I gotta find them all. And I'm sure fishing plays a role.
Yeah, so you have these androids who are fishing.
Yeah.
Cybernetic fish. It's goofy.
Yeah. Yeah, it just, that was one where it did seem out of place, but I remember doing the fishing, and if I remember right, the fishing was very quick in that game. So like, you cast your line and it was pretty immediately decided whether or not you were going to catch something. And maybe that, just like the pacing of it, is why I didn't feel like, what the hell am I doing fishing in Nier Automata? Maybe it was just like, oh, it was just a minor little detour here and there. Doesn't really disrupt the game too much.
And in that game, you can upgrade everything. And you tend to be overpowered in that game. That's not really the point. The point is the story. And I really love that. It's because it's really hard at the beginning. And it just goes on easy mode after a while. And one of the things you can upgrade, I think, is the fishing. I'm like, why would I want to do that?
I do remember that being like, because the upgrade slots are like, that's your economy in that game. You have a limited amount of like slots for powering upgrades or whatever the explanation is. Why would you ever devote any of that to fishing? You are a combat android.
Yeah. I do remember some fish would give you some kind of like oil or something, or you could catch oil and it went towards some upgrades or another. But then again, like I said, it's...
Yeah, I believe you. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was one that when I found it, I was like, I tried to fish everywhere I saw a body of water. The tiniest little creek that it would like, I would catch something. I thought that was so crazy.
I do remember that. I remember there was like a... It wasn't even like a body of water. It was like runoff along a walkway. That was just like the walkway had cracked or something, and there was water running across it, and that led to like an ocean or something. You could fish in that little stream that had formed from water just rushing across this walkway. You could catch something there.
There was an escort mission for some child, one of the little robot children or something. And it took me through the sewer system or something. And I remember thinking, I got to come back to fish here.
Yep. This is important for some reason.
That's the thing I think fishing does in these games, is that they make us take note of the scenery. And, you know.
I definitely think that's true. I think there are definitely that little detail in Nier Automata that, oh, this walkway is formed from like cracked pavement and they're misshapen. That probably wouldn't have stuck with me if not for the fact that there was a little patch of water that had formed like a puddle while it was rushing across this broken pavement, and I fished there. Now I remember that forever. Probably would have forgotten entirely if not for the fishing mechanic.
There's a scene about 2/3 of the way into the base game. And it can be very heart-wrenching, emotional. Man. But I'm at the coast.
That is something else that I've always noticed with minigames, especially in RPGs that have that like those tragic moments in stories, is the way that you play the game and the way that the story progress are not the same thing. So for me, playing like Final Fantasy X, you get like devastating news partway through the game, or you'll learn about some really upsetting like conspiracy that's taking place. And then I run around in circles for a half an hour because I'm trying to capture all of the fiends in this area. And it's just like, dude, we just learned, like, we have to go deal with this issue. What are you doing? No. We're staying here. I haven't completed this area yet. We're not moving on.
Baldur's Gate 3 does not have fishing. Despite having fishing poles everywhere, buckets of fish camp supplies, they missed out. They dropped the ball in that. Yeah.
I genuinely thought you were going to say Baldur's Gate 3 has a great fishing game, and I was just about to be like, no way. How is there still more about that game? I don't know.
No, you see tons of people, like even when you go to Baldur's Gate 3 and you go to the pier, there's people, and I was like, they missed out. I didn't think that initially at the time, but I do remember thinking, like, why don't I get to fish?
Yeah.
But I mean,
honestly, that would be great if that was the trigger for certain fight sequences. Like, they were completely optional. You don't experience them at all unless you fish in these locations and you piss off a Sahagin. And now they're leaping on shore to fight you. Like, that would have been wonderful.
Yeah, the Karatoa, they kind of just show up. Yeah. I died in that battle because I did not expect anything to happen there.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Come on.
There are definitely those fights in Baldur's Gate 3 that, like, you're so sure nothing's gonna happen. You're like, I just need to go over here and talk to this person, and then suddenly something goes wrong, or there's combat like between you and that person that you didn't know about, and now you're like, well, I didn't rest, and my team is already at like a quarter of health.
Yeah.
This is gonna be tricky.
This is why I say rest all the time, anytime you can.
There's so much fish in that game.
Yeah, there's camp supplies everywhere. Just rest. Yeah, that was one that kind of missed out on it.
So I think part of the reason I didn't rest in my earlier playthroughs is that concern that I might not have enough camp supplies. And I think if there were a fishing mini game that would like provided you with like an infinite supply of camp supplies if you just put in the work, I think more people would probably be willing to take that chance of like, oh, I used up a lot. Now I have to go fishing, but no big deal. I can still get more. So I think a fishing minigame actually might have helped a little bit.
Yeah. Games like Morrowind, Oblivion, you could get fish, but you couldn't fish.
There's no minigame.
Skyrim didn't have one initially until later. It was one of their later patches. And once they added it, people went crazy for it. It was like, but the problem is you can't just fish anywhere. You have to have designated spots for that. It was always kind of a mistake, I thought. It's like, I should just be able to fish anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they does it. I don't know why that's one where I agreed with the decision, but not the execution.
I think that was kind of the part of the like building your own home kind of expansion, right? I think they're tied together.
Maybe
that was an expansion that like did not suit me at all. It wasn't one that I hated. It's just like, oh, I see the appeal of this. It's just not for me. And so I never really dug into it all that much. For me, that game was always about the adventure, not really having a home.
Yeah.
So like, I would do the things in each of the holds to become a thane and buy a house. And that was enough.
It was a little fundamentally different than Oblivion, because Oblivion, you just bought stuff, and if you had a castle, I think you had to like turn in this or that and clear the whatevers, and suddenly you now had a castle of your own. So Skyrim was more of a make your way.
That patch came later with Skyrim because they learned just how much people were enjoying being a part of Skyrim. So it was one of those games that people sunk so many hours into just exploring all of it, just going through dungeons and clearing them, even though they were completely optional, nothing tied to a quest. They were just having fun existing in the world of Skyrim. So they just kind of leaned into it with that DLC. They're like, yeah, you know what? You don't have to limit yourself to, being the Dragonborn who saves the world. You can just be a fisherman if you really wanted to.
Yeah. There was even Mass Effect. You know, the thing is that I don't know how much. Some of it's fishing, of course, but some of it's just fish. Some people, you know, just I love aquariums. I mean, I got a biology degree, and part of me was because I've always loved marine biology specifically, and you know, part of me really, really wanted to become a marine biologist. But fish, you know, in a the aquarium setting and stuff, so tranquil. So it's known to reduce blood pressure and stuff. So in Mass Effect, I'm coming full circle. Mass Effect, of course, you can get your fish, and Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3. And that's part of the thing is this, that I never would get them because I always forget to like, well, do I need to feed them? They're going to die. So it's not until Mass Effect 3 when I could get that little thing that kept them alive no matter what before I started getting any fish. Because I was very conscientious about that.
Kelly,
yeah,
get your shit together. Feed my fish.
Kelly's you got to romance Kelly so that she can get you your fish healthy. So that's about it.
It's the only reason.
Yeah,
there are definitely some interesting fishing mini games that I was thinking in other games that are they're not so much tied to like progression, but they do make things easier. And one of the ones I was thinking of was Cult of the Lamb. There is a quest line where you progress with a fisherman, and he asks you to catch, I think, specific fish and turn them into him. And then at the end, he gives you like a piece of something that you can use to unlock like a new outfit, and those have passive buffs associated with them. So it is like a quest line to progress your character and unlock something, but it's not really necessary. You can do that once. You can ignore the fishing entirely and just get the like one outfit another way, and then just go through with that. But that was a really satisfying fishing game, and you could use that to feed your followers. So like, it was not a bad way to spend some time to make sure that everybody was, you know, not eating grass or poop.
Like I said, back with the aquarium stuff, I mean, like Power Wash had the free DLC for the aquariums, and I was like all aboard that one. I was like, oh, get to do aquariums now. So I think maybe I'm just more or less, for me at least, it's a fish thing, not so much just fishing, but yeah.
You enjoy looking at fish. That's what you catch.
Yeah. I love watching piranha. You know, they tend to just be very stationary. When they're in an aquarium, they're very stationary. They're not like other tropical fish that are just like constantly, they're just hovering. Always love piranha. Trying to think. Oh, Dave the Diver.
I knew that one was going to come up.
I totally forgot about that. I was trying to think. It was like, there's one it's all about fishing, but it's also not about fishing.
It's also not about fishing. That's another one, because I feel like there's a part of me that wants to catch every fish in that game, and I'm sure there's a reward for that, but like, it's not that important to the game that I catch like tremendous varieties. You just catch the same fish over and over and over again, and you get better rewards for it because you sell a higher quality version of that meal. So variety is great, but it's not the only way to move forward.
Yeah, and then once you advance the game and for a little bit in Dave, you can have an aqua farm. So stuff that you've already caught, I mean, you don't have to keep catching it. You can just farm it. And then you can start doing the other progressional stuff, which is much more, requires more technical gear and stuff.
Maybe I haven't progressed that far.
Oh, okay.
Still working my way through that one. I enjoy that game, but it's one of those things where like, I'll get 5 or 6 quests at a time and then just be like, all right, how am I supposed to do all of these in one dive? And you're not supposed to do them all in one dive, but like in my head, that's the only way to do things. Because I have to make progress on all 5 of these in this next dive, or I'm wasting my time.
Yeah, the game does a really good job of making you feel like you're, I wouldn't call it immersive, but there's always something that comes up that makes you realize that the Dave the Diver world is active. You know, like you're gonna do your one quest that you have for the ecologist, then you're gonna do some stuff for the main story, and then you realize Bancho says, well, we're going to be visited by so and so. We're going to have this special jellyfish party or something, so we need to catch some jellyfish. There's always something that you're going to be doing, even if you're trying to be focused on the main story. So, and you're not obligated to do any of that stuff, but it just clearly is trying to show you that there's a lot to do. And like I said, it's not just fishing. Sometimes you're trying to find these corals or pearls or something for the ecologist. So
one of the games that popped in my head when we were talking about this is almost the exact opposite of Dave the Diver, where like fishing makes a ton of sense, but it's not the focus of the game. Whereas in Dave the Diver, it seems like fishing is the focus of the game, but the game isn't complete without the other stuff. So for me, the game I was thinking of was Sea of Thieves, which is it's a very, very fun multiplayer PvE VP kind of game. But it has a fishing mini game, which is it's pretty well implemented. I think the fishing is just naturally pretty fun, kind of relaxing. It's a great way to just kind of chill if you have, a crew of 4 and you want 3 people to go onto an island to look for loot, and one person to just keep an eye on the boat. They can throw out a fishing line and then do a scan and then throw out a fishing line. So it was a pretty solid way of keeping people engaged in those moments where, like, yeah, maybe you're not going off and fighting skeletons and digging up treasure. Maybe you're just keeping the boat safe. You still have something to do. But it was, I think, some of my best memories with that game are grouping up with my usual crew and just stupidly going off into the ocean and fishing. Like we were just like, there are accommodations. I need to catch 50 of each type of fish. I just need these types now. So we'll go off to this corner of the map, find an island where we can fish for these and catch them. Really enjoyed that. And it has like very little to do with what you would think the game about pirates is.
I mean, the Yakuza games have all kinds of everything in them, so would not be that far of a stretch. So if somebody has played that and I haven't, then put it in the comments, confirm it or not. No Rest for the Wicked. I've been playing that one, and there's a lot of Souls type mechanics in it, but it's definitely one of those. It's not a platformer, but sometimes it can be platformish because there's lots of layers, a lot of levels, and the camera is locked. But I've never been in a situation where I said the camera is not in a good position for me to do what I got to do. But so it's kind of like ARPG meets Souls meets platform. It's really unique, but it has a fishing game in it, and the fishing is there specifically so that's how you heal, is through food. So you can either get basic things like an apple, and it can replenish your health, but it's of minimal value. When you start cooking things, it's much better for you. It either heals a lot more and or gives a buff, or it heals faster, So like, for instance, like you could get 35 health back versus 50 health over 2 seconds or something like that. I can't remember what the exact mechanics are, but fishing is one of them. So as you progress and as you increase the town where you're at, there's a chef there. As you increase then the restaurant, then he unlocks more recipes for you. So again, the fishing is a big part of that because you can find like crabs and stuff around, but the fish are always there. Integral to the mechanics because there's no health potions. It's all done through food.
Gotcha. But I'm not coming up with too many games where I see fishing in that regard, where it's a kind of mini game side quest thing, but like it's tied directly to
Survival.
To survival. I suppose like any game where you can recover your health by eating food is a good example, and I think that's probably true in the Zelda games. I don't remember a ton of fishing. I know it was in Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Link's Awakening. I think it was an Ocarina of Time. I just don't remember it being a big part of those games for me. But like the games that are popping into my head, and maybe this is just because I've sunk so many hours into it. Disney Dreamlight Valley has a ton of fishing.
Oh, really?
And it's kind of, I imagine it's probably in the same lines of like Stardew Valley, which I should play if I'm going to comment on. But I think the kind of idea is there's, you know, a collection of fish, and you can use them as resources or sell them or whatever you need to do. You can replenish your energy by eating them. And the idea is kind of that's Disney Dreamlight Valley is you're gathering resources to do whatever it is you really want to do in the valley. Like you might need food, and then you might have, you know, companions that want a specific item as like a gift to improve their relationship, or you might need to go mine gems or, you know, farm. There's a little bit of everything, but the fishing game in that one is a pretty satisfying one, pretty straightforward. There's even little, like, you can craft an upgrade for your fishing rod to improve the quality of fish that you get. So like it's something I've spent hours and hours doing in that game. I think there's an achievement tied to it that requires you to just invest a lot of time in fishing. And as we know, I go for every achievement, so I have invested a lot of time. But it was one of those mechanics where, like, whenever I get like a daily quest or whatever it is, one of those mini challenges to go catch so many fish, if it's a fish of a specific type, it's a little irritating. But if it's just like go fishing 20 times, I'm like, okay, that'll be fun. Yeah, it'll be a nice little break from whatever else I was working on.
The most rewarding fishing game I've done recently, it was actually a lot of fun, was in Monster Hunter Wilds. Monster Hunter Wilds has these places where you can go. There's clearly water around here and there, but there's like an oasis too, and you can fish in that. But the areas that you can go to that are kind of really hidden have these little pockets of water, and those fish only get attracted to certain types of bait, which you can find here and there. And I think one of your companions or NPCs or something says, "Oh, you can use that for maybe there'll be a fish or something that likes those type of things." So you get that little indication, and that allows you to create buffs for your foods that have a long-term effect. They also can be turned in for rewards. So definitely the most rewarding fishing game I had in game was probably Monster Hunter Wilds.
When I think Monster Hunter Wilds or Monster Hunter in general, I think co-op. I think, you know, multiplayer. Because I've tried playing those games solo, and they get old real fast when you're not working with a team. And it made me think of one of the other games I've seen fishing in. And it's not a game I'm tremendously familiar with. It's a game I've watched online and I know of. It's old school RuneScape. And I know there's one spot that I think one of my friends showcased like on a Twitch stream or something. And I just remember finding the idea of it so funny. There's a spot where people just fish, I guess for experience or some other reason. Like, they don't even keep the fish. They just fish, they collect a bunch, they throw it on the ground. And then new players run by and they're like, can I have that fish? And now they have, you know, it's a pretty low level like resource, I think, for regenerating health or energy or something like that. But it's just free for new players because these other people are like, oh yeah, I'm on this fishing grind or whatever I'm doing. So yeah, you can have whatever you want.
I think we're gravitating towards we're doing the fishing type games. There's a lot of colony sims that will have fishing as a mechanic. but it's one of the early ones, and I always look for those. So like Farthest Frontier, which I love that one. Who was there's another one on top of my head. But anyway, oh yeah, Manor Lords. They added fishing later. I was like, there's this pool of water and I can't do anything with it. This is kind of useless. The only reason why I would think of water was because you could put a well down and it had a wider area that it would help me with. That's the only way I looked at it. But now you can fish, and that fishing in colony sims is wonderful, because sometimes with the farming mechanics, you have to like get to a certain area. You have to wait till it's fertile. You can only grow so many crops. Fishing is always constant. You can always fish at any time. So I know for me, my favorite colony sims there was always a fishing mechanic in it.
I'm a bit surprised you haven't mentioned fishing in Age of Empires.
That's true. Yeah.
Because I do remember that being a thing, and that being closely tied to the empire you picked as well. I think there were some empires that had specific benefits for fishing.
If you're like Minoan or Phoenician, you had better boats, but I think Minoan had a mechanic. It's been a while. But I do think that they had like you could upgrade your fishing boats and they would collect more.
Mm-hmm. And I know that's the same is true for civilization games. There are some civilizations that are much more oriented towards fishing and do better with city-states or cities founded around water. And I think that's another. I mean, it's significantly less involved in kind of like the fishing mechanic, but it's another way to integrate fishing into your game in a way that creatively kind of changes things up. Mm-hmm. So like,
yeah,
you might think of, some building a city and you're like, oh, I'm going to need a lot of farmland to support the population. Mm-hmm. Or I might not need a lot of fishing locations. It kind of depends on what I'm going for and what my civilization is good at.
Yeah, because I mean, in Age of Empires, I mean, it's like, yeah, I got 4 elephants over there, but once I get rid of those, and elephants fight back. So, yeah. Fish don't fight back.
Although that does remind me of a fishing minigame that I remember being very stressful, is the fishing in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Because you are not fishing with like a fishing line. You are fishing with a harpoon, and you are going after an animal that is going to fight back. I remember that one being real rough. But it was fun. It was challenging. It's just not what I think of when I think of fishing.
Subnautica, of course, is all about the fish. All about the fish. But
that is also not what I think about when I think about fishing.
I know. It's like, it's all these are like, the more I think about it, the more they keep coming up in different aspects of fishing, though. And I think it's really it's the fish. To me, it's all about the fish. I'm kind of partial to that. In Mass Effect, you have a jellyfish species, the Hanar, and you have the Krogan who want to collect fish from the Citadel pools. There's no fish in there. What a waste. People just love fish. That's what it comes down to. And I think this is a really fun, entertaining topic. I'm glad we went over it.
Yeah. I think the fact that you see a lot of games enter fishing as part of their game after its initial release. It's a later update. So I think of a game like Minecraft, where the ocean and biome was always there. Fishing wasn't. Fishing was a later update.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a testament to how versatile and how flexible that kind of mechanic can be, to introduce it into your game much later and still have it feel appropriate.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't ever think about the fishing mechanics in those games at the time. Never do. But in hindsight, I always think about how good or how bad I didn't like the fishing mechanic in that game.
Yep.
It's like, what the heck? Why do I remember that of all things,
Yeah, it's weird, the things that we carry with us after a game.
Yeah. But yeah, and there's definitely no fishing mechanic in Star Wars: The Old Republic. And I always felt that they kind of missed out on that. It's not like mining in Warcraft. Mining in Warcraft, you're like, you just scan things, or you'll scan this, or you scan that. I always kind of thought like fishing would have been kind of fun in that game. You know, it just would have been just that little bit extra. And that was probably why it failed compared to World of Warcraft. It's the fishing mechanic.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that if you could pinpoint one thing, the fishing.
I'm going to log into Star Wars after we're done. Just forgive me, Star Wars: The Old Republic. Just forgive me. I didn't mean what I said. I love that game. I love that game. It's just too bad it's not well loved.
I'm sure they have plenty of bandwidth to go back and add stuff to it now. Maybe they'll add fishing.
There's tons of worlds with water. Tons of them. Tons of them. So, but yeah, good topic. I appreciate it. Good spring topic as well. But if any companies like Bass Pro Shops wants to sponsor us, we are
Yeah.
gone fishing. If somebody wants to think of a topic that's either spring related or activity related that you want us to go over, put it in the comments. We definitely appreciate input. But yeah, we reached 100 subscribers today too. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was super exciting.
Yeah. Once we get to 69, I said, now we're good. We're good. We're done.
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
But now we're at 100, so now we got to keep pushing on. 400 more and we get super chats. So that's something to look forward to.
This is not at all why we're doing this. So, but I mean, if anybody wants to get us to that point,
sure,
okay,
absolutely. So things like that, we're always looking at ways we can, accommodate a better,
investing in the
video. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, if we get any income from this ever, just makes sense to put it right back into the channel.
All right. Well, we will check you guys later. And hopefully you have a very good fishing time. If you have any big fish stories of your own, put it in the comments. Let us know. We like big fish tales. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.